Okay, I'd like to welcome you again to the second part of our discussion of ethics board. Today's lecturer is Gerhard Overland. He's a senior research fellow at the Center for Applied Philosophy and Public Ethics in Australia. The center is basically an Australian National University, but it's joined by several universities in Australia. And he's also the project leader in the University of Oslo. And they just asked him, project leading, what kind of project he's leading. He said, responsibility to global poverty. And it happens that both speakers, over time, like Gerhard Overland, also work on killing people and helping the poor at the same time. So I'm not sure there's a link. I also happen to work on those things. There must be some link between those two. Anyway, of course, he'll have Gerhard is Overland Norwegian and have a taste of, strong Norwegian accent. To enjoy it, as much as I do. Well, his talk is about killing, of course, killing people as side effects. I'd like to welcome him to the talk. Thank you.
Thank you for.
Hello.
So, I've been here before, actually. I was there like 1.5 years ago. I really like this place. So I'll be back. So my talk today is killing people as a side effect. Of course, that topic is basically very important in questions of killing civilians in war, right? I will talk a little bit about that, but mainly I will talk about killing people as a side effect in general. And the question I am interested in is, why is it more permissible? It is easier to justify killing people as a side effect than to kill them directly, if the goal is the same. I see there are quite a few people who are nodding here, and I think some people think that it's not, right? It's not more easy. And that was perhaps my fault also, because the current justifications for why it seems more permissible has to do with the intentions of the agent. And that just doesn't seem to me plausible at all. We are talking about the death of many other people, right? And how could the intention of the agent who is doing the killing be so important that could count for for the lives of many people? That seems to me very strange. But even though I think that is strange, I do actually have the intuition that it is more easy to justify killing people as a side effect than to kill them directly. So what I will try to do here is to propose another account of why it is more permissible. So this topic is particularly relevant for the ethics of war. And in a war, you normally need to destroy the enemy's military installations and to kill his soldiers, right? But sometimes when you try to do this, you will have collateral damage. You will kill innocent people as a side effect. And it seems difficult to think that it could be completely impermissible to do that if you think that some wars might be justified. Because it's almost impossible to fight a war without killing some people as a side effect. So I will talk then about that there is a reduced constraint against killing people as a side effect as compared to killing them directly. When I say that the constraint is less stringent, I mean that it is that this reduction has numerical significance. And by that I mean that actually is so that if you kill people as a side effect for a particular goal, it is necessary to save less people when you kill the same number of people. But the difference between killing people directly and killing them as a side effect has implications for the actual number of those you kill. So, and I would argue that that cannot be defended on the basis of intentions. But I will not argue that intentions doesn't count at all. But I will argue that intentions does not have numerical significance. So let me say a few words about intentions. So this is working, this thing here? Yes? Yes. And my accent is not working, or? It will be even worse when I start to draw, you know? Norwegian drawing is a bad accent, that's good. Okay. So, when you intend to kill somebody, you aim this person's death. Right? And if you fail, you try another time. Right? But if you kill people as a side effect, you do not aim at their death. And if they don't die in your attempt to achieve the goal you are trying to achieve, you do not try another time. Right? The side effect are not your aim. So when you kill a person with intention, you aim at that person's death. And of course, very often, agents who kill people as a side effect regret that fact. Right? But I will not go into the discussion whether or not all agents or all in all wars this is plausible, to what extent armies take civilians, casualties seriously enough and things like that. But normally, if someone killed as a side effect, that is a regrettable outcome, and we'll try to reduce the number of them. So, my question then is, why is it easy to justify killing people as a side effect and to kill them directly? So how much more easy is it? Right? I mean, to kill a person directly means that you intend this person's death, or that you use this person as a means for obtaining a particular good. So that if I'm under threat from an aggressor, right, and I can use Bashar as a shield, right, then I killed Bashar. I can shoot him and use him as a shield, for example. But if I'm under threat and I have some possibility to defend myself, but I will also, when I do that, blow up Bashar, then I kill him as a side effect. I don't use him. I don't intend his death. And the idea here now is that it is easier to justify having him as a side effect than to have him as a means or as an intended dead person. So let me then give you an illustration of the situation. So the situation is that Mary is attacked by Tom. So this is a Norwegian drawing. Can everyone see this? Yeah. So Mary has long hair. So Mary is attacked by Tom. Okay? Mary is able to defend herself. Be careful because it's not very... So okay now? You can't see, but that was mine. So Tom attacks Mary. Okay. Mary has a flamethrower. Right? Mary has a flamethrower, you know. She's a Norwegian Viking, so she's prepared for things like that happen. She has a flamethrower, so she's able to defend herself. Flamethrower, you know, things you have in your purse and you take off and lot of fire. Yeah, flamethrower. So Mary is able to defend herself. Unfortunately, this flamethrower is not very precise. It's not an intelligent weapon. So, and unfortunately also there is a house behind Tom. And there are people in the house. And when Mary kills Tom, she also burns up the house. Right? So then the question is it permissible for Mary to use her flamethrower? Well, that would obviously, at least obviously for me, seem to depend on how many people in the house. But maybe even if it's only one person in the house, it's not permissible. I think people have slightly different intuitions here. But you can also imagine that there is a group of people together with Mary that will also die in Tom's attack. Right? And then we can vary the numbers here and the numbers there. And at some point people will think it's permissible for Mary to proceed if she saves herself and these innocent people, even though she kills some people here. How many? I don't really know. And there's not many estimates in the discussion about this thing. And there are many discussions about it. And most people, most philosophers, accept that it is more permissible to kill people as a side effect than to kill them directly. But they are whatever. They don't want to give the correct number. I've seen two estimates. Jeff McMahon, well-known ethics of war philosopher, he suggests if there were 5 people here and 1 here, it would be okay. But he would definitely not think it would be okay to kill 1 person to save 5 people directly. To kill this person directly. For example, to cut if you need organs. 5 people need organs, different sorts of organs. And you can take an innocent person and redistribute his organs to these 5 people. You cannot do that. That's something that Jeff McMahon would clearly reject. But if you think it's permissible to kill 1 person to save 5 people. Thomas Hurka, a Canadian philosopher, suggests actually that it is permissible it could even be permissible to kill 2 or 3 to save 1 person. If for example Mary is together with her daughter, and there are some people there, Thomas Hurka thinks it's permissible for her to proceed. So, just for the sake of argument, and also because I think it's not completely implausible, I would suggest 10. So in my argument, I will take it for granted that it is actually okay, morally permissible, for Mary to proceed and kill Tom and 1 person in the house if she saves 10 people. Either 10 others or 9 others and herself. I would like to hear your intuitions about this later, but my argument is not actually has nothing to do with the correct. I'm not trying really to try to find the correct number. I'm trying to find a reason for why it is more permissible to kill people as a side effect. I mean, you might obviously reject that view and think that is equally bad. That's another story. Okay, so why then? Is it so? Why is it more permissible? traditional view, as I indicated in the introduction, is that it has to do with the intentions of the agent. Right? In this case, he does not intend these people's death. She will not be able or permitted to do anything that comes close to this if she intended this person's death or intended to use her to survive. It is because these people's death is not intended that it might be permissible for her to proceed. That is not really an argument. It is a reason, but it's not really an argument of what. It goes about why should intentions matter. Apart from the obvious fact that intentions really matter in many situations in morality. For example, it matters if you are driving, right, and you just due to bad luck hit a pedestrian. That is very different from trying to hit this person, right? So in the evaluation of a person's character, moral character, intention is obviously very important. But why it should matter for how many people you can kill, that seems a little bit more strange. But of course, it is the fact that when you kill people as a side effect, you do not intend their death. So the lack of intention do actually map the situation it is supposed to explain. That, of course, makes it plausible to think that it must have something to do with it. Okay, so I have suggested that it is permissible to kill one person to save 10 people. Let's now assume that there are 19 people together in marriage. That means together there are 20 people here, right? 19 plus 1. It's Norwegian mathematics. And then you have 2 people in the house. And now I have said that it is permissible for Mary to proceed by using her flamethrower. But now suppose that Mary also has a rifle in the other person. And these people are not in the house, but they are standing on the roof. And of course, Tom is behind some trees. So in order to hit Tom, she has to use the flamethrower. And then these people will die. These 3 people. And now we have said that is permissible. But she has this rifle, and she's very good at using it. She can't hit Tom because Tom is hidden. But she can hit either of these 2, and luckily, either of these 2 will then fall on Tom and make his attack ineffective. This happens often in Norway. So, that's too much, right? Norway is a little bit strange, but we got oil. Okay. So, of course, if Mary shoots at one of these people, she intends to hit the person. And if she misfires, she will try once more and hit him in the head. So that he falls there. Right? So she will use this person as a means to make the threat ineffective. Of course, if you think that it is the intentions that makes it permissible, the lack of intention to kill, that makes it permissible to use the flamethrower, it might sound a little bit strange to think that it now is permissible to use the rifle. But nevertheless, for me it is so obvious that if Mary can choose to kill both or one of them, what should she do? She should obviously use the rifle to kill one of them. You can imagine that she has a phone and she can ask them and call them, do you want to be killed both, or should I give her toss a coin and kill one of you? Of course they will say, toss a coin and kill one of us. So to insist now that she cannot proceed, some people will actually, I guess, insist that she could not use the rifle. Anyway, so I do think it's completely irrational to insist here that she would have to use the flamethrower. And if that is the case, it cannot be the intentions of the agent that explains why it is permissible to kill the two in the first place. There must be something else. And the question then is what? And I think it must be something about the circumstances that these two people find themselves in. These people obviously have a reason to support that she use this rifle. Right? If she toss a coin, they will be given a 50% chance of survival. This has some features shared with another case that is much discussed in philosophy. I don't know how much you know about this kind of cases, but this one is not from Norway, this is from South America, and it's about Jim and Pedro. So Pedro has taken 20 Indians, and Pedro is a military man, and he's taken 20 Indians and will punish these people and kill all of them. Hello. So, and Jim is a tourist, and Pedro wants to have some fun with Jim and asked if he would kill one of them, so that, and then he would let the 19 others go. So these Indians are innocent. And obviously, these 20 people have reason to support that Jim does so. Right? What makes Jim's action permissible here is Pedro's bad actions. Right? If you take away Pedro, obviously Jim cannot kill any of the Indians. Jim can only kill one of the Indians because Pedro is a very bad man and has forced this situation upon Jim. Mary has here forced to choose between these options. But in this case, we stipulated that it was permissible to use the flamethrower. And then we cannot explain this by intentions when now it's permissible to use the rifle, which obviously is a violation of the doctrine of double effect. If she used the rifle, she intends this person's death, and she used this person's death as a means to survive. So the reason must therefore lie in the circumstances that these people find themselves in. And it is important here to notice that when Mary kills one person with intention, the person she kills will have to be a subset of those people it would be permissible to kill as side effect? There are many houses in Norway, and here we have one more. Right. So here could Alice standing and she watches the birds. And she is not under threat when Mary uses her flamethrower. So Alice is not a legitimate target either for the use of the rifle. Unless, of course, you think that it is permissible to kill one person directly to save 20 people. So for example, Thomas Hülke and Jeff McMahon, who thinks that there is something with the Dr. Double effect, they do not believe so. They think that it will require many more people than 20 in order for it to be permissible to kill one person directly. Some people seem also to think that it is never permissible. I don't think so, but I also have a tendency to think that more people will be required. How many? I don't know, and I don't want to try to give an answer to that. But it's important to notice that the people you kill as a subset, that you kill directly must be a subset of those that will be killed as a side effect. And similarly, if Mary actually didn't have a flamethrower in the first place, she wouldn't be permitted to kill anyone. It is because she has a flamethrower that makes it permissible for her to use the rifle against these people. Because if she had no flamethrower, there would be no difference between killing them or this person or anybody else. I think. And also these people might move in and out of or where the flamethrower will hit here, right? So these people might move in and out of this area. And it's only permissible to kill these people when they are with the rifle, when they are within the area where the flamethrower will hit them. So that if Alice starts to walk in here, she could become one of those people that could be killed with a rifle. Okay, so this observation here is new in the sense that other philosophers like Jonathan Dennett has observed the kind of irrationality in claiming that intention can count for a high number of people. So he has suggested also that if you can choose between killing n people without intention as a side effect, or n people minus 1 with intention, killing them directly, you ought to kill n people minus 1 directly. But he didn't observe the fact that n minus 1 person has to be a subset of n. Right? So he thought that was a general truth. So that if you could kill some people as a side effect, and you could kill any lesser number of people anywhere in the world, you should do that. I don't think that is correct. I think there is something about these people who are under threat from the flamethrower that makes them legitimate targets. for a reduced attack on their numbers directly. Okay, so what is it then? What is what? So I have rejected the view that it is easier to justify killing people as a side effect because of the intentions, but I have accepted that it is easier to justify. Right? So I better come up with an alternative. Alternative is very simple. Alternative is that these people have had bad luck and now find themselves in a situation in which they have become obstacles to Mary's otherwise permissible use of defensive force. As moral obstacle is a problem in the sense that she can not anymore use otherwise permissible means to defend herself. So these people are not bystanders. This person is a bystander as long as he hasn't moved within the circle. This person is a bystander. These two people are not bystanders because bystanders are not supposed to be part or they are not supposed to obstruct. Right? So they are not physical obstacles, right? They are moral obstacles. They are obstacles because it makes it more difficult for marriage to proceed. And if it is enough for these people, it will not be permissible for marriage to proceed. If it is a significant lesser number, I suggested that I'm very willing to adjust my estimates. If it is a significant lesser number, that is 1 to 10, these people will have to take a cost. Judge McMahon suggested 1 to 5, although he thinks it has to do with intentions. I don't think it has to do with intentions. I think it has to do with the bad luck these people have had. They are coming to a situation where there are no more moral obstacles. Mary has also bad luck. She's attacked by Tom. These people have to take most of the cost in the sense that if there are 5 people here and 1 here, they will have to let themselves die. So they have to take most of the risk. These people have just to take a little bit. Right? So this is the idea that's why it is sometimes in war permissible to bomb a munition factory, even though it kills civilians as a side effect. But it must, because these people who live by, assuming that they are irresponsible, they still have had bad luck and no moral obstacle for the survival of others. When I talk about survival of others, we must assume that bombing the munition factory is essential to save other people. If not, of course it's not permissible to bomb the munition factory. In the long run, taking up military installations are supposed to be justified because it saves other people. Or other valuables that count for it, for something similar. I don't think many things. Anyway. So, when I'm supposed to finish, just to make an estimate of how much I said. No. I have more people to kill him. So why should it matter that these people are moral obstacles? I mean, in one sense, the little I said already gives at least me some explanation of why. in the sense that they know are obstacles to an otherwise permissible defensive action by Mary. That is some kind of justification. It's not as good as one could like, but it is something. We can also look at another type or other category people can find themselves in without being morally responsible for threatening other people. Due to unluck, due to bad luck, you might become an innocent aggressor or an innocent threat. So that you might have bad luck and threaten the life of another person without being morally responsible for it. I could, for example, throw you toward another person so that you will kill this person by your mere weight. Then you are an innocent threat. Right? I'm very strong. And many people then, even in that case, seem to think that it is permissible to use defensive force against this threat coming flowing. Not all people think so, but many people seem to think so. And that's basically because this person who is an innocent threat has had bad luck. There's no about to cause another person's death. I don't think you should look at these moral obstacles as similar to innocent threat. I think more force can be used towards innocent threat than towards moral obstacles. So if there are people falling towards Mary, right? It is easier to justify killing these people directly than to kill these people. It is permissible to kill. It is not required that the difference in numbers here are the same as the difference in number here. Some people will think it's permissible for Mary to kill one innocent threat. Some people will think that it is permissible for Mary to proceed if she saves only one person and herself. And these people basically have had bad luck and now are in a position to cause another person's death, and therefore, as a matter of fairness, we could say that they have to take on a fair share of the risk of this harm. Similarly, we could say that these people have not, due to bad luck, become moral obstacles. And they also have to take on a fair share, although a lesser share, in this situation than in the other one here. It is also possible to try to give a contractual argument for why, first, why innocent threats and why innocent aggressors have less claim on protection, and why moral obstacles. Then secondly, why moral obstacles also should be differentiated from innocent bystanders. So we have three types of people here now. So we have the innocent bystander, we have moral obstacles, and we have innocent threats / aggressors. An innocent aggressor, that means that if I manipulate you to believe that you need to kill another person, right? If I manipulate you to believe that you have good reason to believe that you need to kill another person, then you are innocent. You are not morally to blame for attacking this person, but you are an aggressor, right? It's your actions that will kill the other person. You are an innocent aggressor. some philosophers argue that it is not permissible to kill innocent aggressors and threats. And they do that on the basis that these people have not done something that have made them lose the right to life. This is in opposition to common sense, in the sense that most people I talk to off the street, I've talked to people on the street about this very often now, they definitely seem to think that it is permissible to kill innocent aggressors and threats. Threats and aggressors have a reduced term of protection. And the first one is what I call the proxy for culpability argument. And the proxy for culpability is that it is more likely, in general, that innocent aggressors and threats are in fact slightly culpable than the person they follow or the person they attack. It is more, if you don't know, the only thing you see is that one person attacks another person. It is more likely that, not always, there definitely might be circumstances that that's not the case, but it's more likely in general that the attacker or the innocent threat is morally culpable for the situation and not the victim. That's why people in a contract situation could have reason to accept a rule that says that it is permissible to kill innocent threats and aggressors in order to, in the long run, increase the probability that it is the culpable people who take the cost and not the innocent people. And the second type of argument is incentive argument. So that even though people might not be morally responsible for being innocent aggressors and threats, giving these people the duty to take on part of the cost will give people an extra incentive to try to avoid becoming threats and aggressors. So that is basic, very short, the two arguments I think one can try to argue for why innocent aggressors and threats have a reduced term of protection and an increased duty to take on some of the cost. So the first was the proxy for culpability argument, the second was the incentive argument. Here it is slightly more difficult to use the proxy for culpability argument. It's not, at least not in Norway, a good tactic could be a moral obstacle in order to kill somebody. Right? So it's not obvious that when you see a situation from afar, right, it is not obvious that this person, it is not more likely, perhaps, to say that this person is culpable for the situation than this person. Right? But in this situation, it could be likely that this person is more likely that this person is culpable than this person. So the proxy for culpability argument might not work so well with regard to moral obstacles. Perhaps, however, I mean, this is a new topic for me too, in the sense that this is a new draft and I haven't presented it before and I haven't worked that much on it, and I haven't worked out the contractual argument either. So I'm not sure how well it works, but the idea is that the incentive argument could still make sense. Right? It could be, the contracting parties could have reason to say that these people should have a particular duty to take on a little bit of the cost, and a particular duty to take on cost to get out of the way. Right? So the suggestion is then that these people have a duty to take on more cost to get out of the way than this person would have to take on cost in order to save marriage. So, what's the idea? The idea here is that an innocent bystander could be said to have a duty to save marriage if she can do so, if it doesn't cost too much. Right? If the cost to marry is getting wet on her feet, for example, If that is all the cost for Mary to make Tom ineffective to kill him, for Alice to make Tom ineffective to kill Mary, then she ought to do it, right? But if Alice can save Mary by small cost, she ought to do it. But there are limits to how much cost Alice will have to take off. With regard to these people, if they know about the situation, it seems plausible to say that these people will have a duty to take on more cost to get out of the way than this person will have to take on in order to save Mary. And so the suggestion is that in the contractual argument, in the contractual situation, the contracting parties have reason to say that moral obstacles have a standing duty to get out of the way in order to facilitate otherwise permissible defensive force. Okay, so what I am at least partly secure about with regard to this argument is that there is something about the circumstances that explains why it is more easy to justify killing people as a side effect than to kill them directly. Right? So I think the idea of moral obstacles is, at least there's a chance that that is correct. I'm not sure that I have found a good justification for it. I'm not sure how well this contractual argument will work for this one. So, so far I've talked about innocent moral obstacles. But moral obstacles might of course also be morally responsible. They might be morally responsible for this situation in two ways. They may have a particular relation to Tom. Right? They may have hired Tom to kill Mary. Right? I mean, in that case, obviously, they have lost a lot of their claim on immunity. Obviously. Right? And they may have forced Tom to attack Mary. They may threaten to kill Tom if Tom doesn't attack Mary. In such a situation, it's obviously that these people have lost their immunity. So, but let's assume that it's slightly more difficult. So there are 4 people here, for example, right? And Tom is their soldier, right? And they are considering whether or not they should send Tom against Mary. And they deliberate about that and they discuss the matter, but they can't come to a complete agreement. So they cast votes. Right? So 3 vote in favor, and the 4th person vote against it. In that case, also I think it seems at least obvious to me that these people who vote in favor of sending Tom against Mary are now assuming that Tom's attack on Mary is not justified. These people who vote in favor of it have lost maybe not all of their immunity, but at least a significant amount of it. The person voting against could be sent to be morally innocent, right? But there is, of course, another possibility for this 4th person to be morally responsible, and he might be morally responsible in a way that pertains directly to being a moral obstacle. Right? So he can do whatever he is able to in order to stop the aggression from Tom towards Mary. Right? But he can fail to move out of the way. Right? And a moral obstacle can be a culpable moral obstacle if the moral obstacle knows about the situation and it is not very costly for this person to move out of the way, but he or she nevertheless fails to do so, then this person will be a total moral obstacle. And in that case, I would think the claim to protection is even further reduced. Right? So the responsibility issue comes in two ways. First, it has to do with the relation between the people in the house and Tom. And the more directly they are in relation to Tom's aggressive activity towards Mary, the more the claim of protection will be reduced. But they might also be morally responsible in a second way, which has to do with the mere fact that they don't move out of the way. Right. And then I will back to Norway. Then I will back to my home. That was ammunition factory. This is from real life, not my life, but real life. Norway was occupied by Germans in 1940, and although there was not big factories in Norway, there was a small one, ammunition factory at Raufoss, during outside the place called Gjøvik, which is in the middle of Norway, which might also be called middle of nowhere. And it is said that the British, they considered bombing this factory. Because, of course, when Norway was occupied with Germans, this factory produced weapons for the Germans. And the British were considering bombing it, it is said, but they didn't do it because they didn't want to kill civilians. Wow. So, those things happen. But it also, we also have stories about what went on in the heads of those people working there. They knew about this. They knew about the fact that the factory was a possible target. But they didn't move. Nobody. Nobody moved out of the way. Right? And of course, so there are two things in this with regard to this factory at Raufoss. First, those people who worked in the factory, they didn't stop either. Right? So they directly contributed to the creation of weapons to kill people that should not be killed. And so, in that sense, they are responsible, at least to some extent. But also those people who were living in the neighborhood could be said then to be moral obstacles. So even though they were not responsible for the war in a significant way, they could be said to be responsible in the sense that they ought to have moved out of the way. And it seemed very uncostly for Norwegians at that point to move out of the way. There was no threat at all from the Germans that if they stopped working in the factory, nothing would happen to them. They could just stop working there and move on somewhere else. And most people living in the neighborhood didn't work there either. So, yeah. Then I think Russia wants me to stop.
Thank you. We open the floor for questions. I hope some the card get this forward. Yes. Maybe you can. Give us one. Give it to them.
You can answer. Yes, sir. You don't have an accent.
I was wondering, did you one thing that struck me was that while Mary is morally blameworthy for using such an indiscriminate weapon, what do you have to say about that? I mean, it seems that she shouldn't be using a flamethrower. It could put other people in danger. You know, she should use a smarter weapon.
So
more precise.
Yeah. So the first thing is that
she don't have the smart weapon. Right? She only has the flamethrower.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was the carriers in Norway, you know. That is what people had in Norway, flamethrowers. So, and then of course you could say she didn't use it. Right? You could say that, right? But then you would have to say that no matter what the numbers are. And I suggested that if you increase the numbers who are together with married, that will be killed by Tom's attack. At some point people think, well, yes, it is regrettable that she only has a flamethrower, but she can use it nevertheless. And my suggestion was that if it is 10 people here and only one person in the house, then she could proceed. You might deny that, and that's not really my argument, but it seems that almost everybody accepts that at some point it becomes permissible for her to use the flamethrower.
I suppose it would be if that's the only thing she had available.
It is only what she has available. Oh, sorry, if I didn't make that clear. Yes.
Yeah.
In the first picture of this story, she only has the flamethrower. If she had something else that would not kill these people, or less, she would obviously have been required to do that, or if she could run away, of course she should run away instead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I don't quite get this thing about moral obstacles. I mean, if I understand correctly, moral obstacles are people who, by their presence, preclude otherwise permissible defensive force.
Yes.
Is that okay? But you say that it actually is permissible to kill the people on the top of the roof with a flamethrower.
Yeah,
so if it is permissible, how can it be moral obstacles?
It is permissible if you add numbers, right? But if let's say if Mary is alone and there's one person here, Mary cannot proceed, right? And the idea is it's not that these people are legitimate target or anything like that. It is that they have the claim of protection reduced, and that means that they count for less when you do the calculation of numbers. So that at some point when the numbers comes out favorably enough for these people, it is permissible to kill these type of people. Those people are called moral obstacles.
Okay.
And I mean, so the name, of course, you could say at the point when it's permissible to kill them, you could say then you shouldn't call them moral obstacles anymore. Is that what you're worried about?
That is what I'm worried about, and if moral obstacle is somebody not who is in a certain kind of situation precluding otherwise permissible action, which is not in your case, because in this house situation they are not precluding it, because if there are enough of people, in other words, in a situation where there are enough people behind Mary, they don't preclude anything.
So the better idea is, the better formulation is perhaps to say that there are moral obstacles in the sense that they make an otherwise permissible means of self-defense more problematic. So it is not that it is always impermissible, of course. Sometimes it is permissible and the number comes out right.
But morally problematic is a very vague term, and most people would say that killing is anyway morally problematic. So, I mean, then I don't see the big difference between...
No, so I don't think I would change my vocabulary. I just want to come in your direction a little bit. I think it makes perfect sense to call this type of people moral obstacles, even though at a certain point it will become permissible to kill them. Because the fact is not that...
What are moral burdens?
Huh?
What are moral burdens?
Yeah, maybe. I don't think so, but maybe.
Yes, Yes, sorry, I didn't follow completely your lines of argument, but I'm wondering if you can comment on a situation that is perhaps real rather than a case story. You know, in the region there is this argument, there are circumstances in which armed combatants, or if you want semi-military groups, are deemed to deliberately choose to be living and operating among civilians, knowing fully well that they're going to be targeted by an enemy fire. How would your line of arguments work in such scenario?
Yes.
Are you with me?
Yes. So I think so, in the sense that here Tom has sneaked into the house, or Tom is this combatant, right? And he's not welcome or whatever, right? But he goes here in order for it to be more difficult for Mary to kill him without killing people as a side effect.
Yes.
Yes.
Human shields,
Yes.
whatever they call them.
I haven't thought much about it, but I would think that when Tom approaches and comes close to these people, they become moral obstacles.
Yeah.
And my argument will apply to these people. It's unfortunate, but it's true. These people will lose some of their claim on protection. That's my response, but yeah.
That's
It does not mean that they have reduced. It does not mean that it's okay to kill them. It's only permissible to kill them if the numbers comes out right. So there must be something significant at stake here. Right? You need to save quite a lot of people by killing Tom when you kill these people.
so it's a proportionality argument,
Yeah.
which kicks in.
Proportionality is obviously important. I mean, that's the number thing, right? But the proportionality calculation will be slightly different when you kill people at side effect, because those who kill at side effect are moral obstacles. And also, here is also the question of what do these people know about Tom coming sneaking in? Because if they know that Tom is coming sneaking in, and they could move out of the way without too much cost to themselves, they become culpable moral obstacles if they stay.
I would also like to bring this to a more real situation than some hypothetical TM buildings. But if we take, for example, war, which is what's relevant to me, I don't really see. I don't see this case being like it doesn't really apply in the sense of war. I mean, at least for example, collateral damage is what most states like to call it. I call it state terrorism.
This is collateral damage, right?
Yes. Now, but I have a question. For example, let's say, Saddam Hussein is killing people in his country, and the USA decides to go and blow everything up, and they call it collateral damage. I would like to call that state terrorism, and I don't believe that if one person kills civilians, it justifies someone else to kill him by killing civilians as well, if you know what I mean. I just want to know, like, what's your opinion on the idea of collateral damage and state terrorism, and how do you apply, if you can apply this mentality to it?
I can. This is collateral damage, right? I didn't use that word. When Mary kills Tom with a flamethrower and burns this house down, so this is collateral damage, right? They don't only want to kill, call this type of actions state terrorism if it is carried out by states. I don't really want to argue against that, but it is normal to say that if you do not, to some extent, intend the death of those people you kill, it is not really terrorism. But that is basically a definition.
So what you're saying is that the 1.2 million Iraqis who died were not state terrorism, the 3 million Vietnamese who died were not state terrorism, the other thousands and millions of people who died because of a certain intention to take out the despot is not state terrorism, it's all just collateral damage.
You mean all over? For example, I mean in World War II, you mean when the British bombed in Germany?
I mean, World War II is a very extreme scenario, but I'm thinking post-World War II. In Vietnam, for example, when USA...
When you're talking about the death of these people, are you talking about in general, so all Vietnam people, the death of all these people was terrorism? Or are you talking about particular situations?
I'm talking about the death of the people in Vietnam, the citizens. The death of the citizens in Vietnam, for example, who were killed under the banner of some ideology, or the deaths of the Iraqis who died because of taking out Saddam Hussein. The intention was to take out Saddam Hussein, but the damage was 1.2 million dead. I call that state terrorism. Now, if you want to use the intention argument, it no longer becomes state terrorism, it becomes collateral damage.
In Vietnam, as far as I know, Americans sometimes targeted the civilians. In Iraq, they didn't do that, as far as I know. It might be wrong, right? But in Iraq, Americans did not want civilian people's death, right? They may have failed to make enough effort to avoid it, right? They might have failed to do that, but they didn't. They had no use of killing Iraqis, as far as I can understand. Why should they want to do that? So,
to terrorize them. That's the point.
So why should they want to do that in Iraq?
To terrorize the civilians.
Yeah, why? What would the Americans benefit from doing that?
That's not. I don't understand.
I mean, when the British bombed the Germans, they had some hope that by bombing and killing civilians, the Germans would give up. The Americans, so that was terrorism, state terrorism. That is very plausible to me. That was state terrorism. But when the Americans invaded Iraq, they had no hope that Saddam Hussein would quit fighting because Americans killed some of his civilians. So what could be the benefit of doing that? Why should Americans want to kill Iraqi people? I don't know the answer, but I'm just wondering why should they do it? I can see why the British should do it, because they wanted to frighten the Germans to stop doing the war.
Yeah, why would people? You asked me why would someone want to kill someone and not a murderer? I don't know the answer to that.
That is a little. Yeah, but you asked me whether or not this is terrorism, right?
Yes.
And then you must. I mean, what makes thing a terrorism? What makes a certain activity terrorism? It seems to have to do with something with regard to what are the purpose of the activity. When the British bombed German cities, one of the purposes, at least at some point, was to show that they were able to do this and make the Germans go against stop supporting Hitler, so that they had some hope that terror against the civilians would make them win the war. Do you think that is a plausible description also in the Iraq situation, so that when the Americans attacked Iraq, they had some hope that Saddam Hussein would stop fighting because of the Iraqi civilians' death?
But I don't think you're saying that if it's not terrorism, it's justified. Collateral damage could be unjustified collateral damage. That's a different question. So.
Oh yeah, I'm not arguing for the death of the Iraqi people was justified. Well, that's a completely different story. I'm just wondering why we should call it terrorism.
Yes.
I'm not sure I endorse your idea of moral obstacles because you're basically stripping the right of these two people to life for the greater good. But let's assume I do. What stops this line of argument from being applied to other aspects of life? Why just war, life and death? For example, if two people win the lottery or they get some inheritance and there are 100 poor people, using this argument, it would be okay for me to go beat them up, steal their money, and distribute it to the 100 for the greater good. So where do you set the limit?
Okay, so two people win the lottery. And in what sense are they moral obstacles? They are moral obstacles because they don't let you take the money, or?
Sure. The greater good isn't achieved. There are people still hungry, still starving, and so by beating them up.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that this analogy works, because the situation here is that if you take away these people, right? If you take away these people, there is no. Mary is not in a morally problematic situation. She's under attack, but she has effective weapons to defend herself, right? So she can proceed. This because of the existence of these two people. We have nothing to do with the existence of the threat that Mary now has a moral problem. So they are moral obstacles.
Sure.
So I'm just wondering how this would work with regard to your situation, right?
Yeah.
So two people win a lottery. And you want to redistribute this money, right?
Sure, these two people aren't contributing to the poverty region.
How are they contributing to it?
No, I'm saying they're not contributing to the poverty. They're just innocent people who just happen to have bad luck, or in this case, good luck.
So Tom's analogous to poverty, I guess.
So you're saying that.
No, Tom is the lottery winner. This is poverty.
No, the poverty.
Tom is poverty, and the other two people win the lottery. Or forget that analogy, just by concept. So what stops me from?
The first answer whether or not this apply outside world, yes it does.
Okay. Does it apply in my analogy? Do I have the right?
No, I don't see this analogy. I don't see it yet. I don't really see how this actually should work.
But the greater good is achieved on the expense of a few people who we can say are moral obstacles.
No. Yeah, you can say are moral obstacles. Yeah, maybe. But if I wonder if not your art situation is a little bit more like this direct killing of Alice, who is not a moral obstacle. If you take away all these people here, right? Take away this, right? Mary is here, she has no rifle, no flamethrower, she only has the rifle. So she can kill Alice to save herself. In that case, she cannot do that according to most people's situation. And also according to my argument, because this person is not a moral obstacle. This person does not obstruct an otherwise permissible defensive action of Mary, because there is no otherwise defensive permissible action that she can do. The only thing she can do is to kill her. And in your situation, your only option is to take the money. There is nothing else. So
it's permissible.
No, it is not an analogy as far as I can understand.
No, I just want to know how your reasoning applies to this. I just don't understand how you can prioritize sacrificing people's rights for the greater good and not sacrificing other people's rights in a similar situation.
But this is not just a sacrifice of these people's rights for the greater good. This is also combined with the fact that these people are moral obstacles. Here, in this situation, it is a mere sacrifice of this person for the greater good. This person is not a moral obstacle. And my point is that it is more difficult to justify this type of killing than to justify this type of killing. But that doesn't mean that I don't think perhaps taking lottery winners money and distribution to the poor is permissible. That I would think is permissible, but that's another story.
Okay, so my question is, does your theory of killing people as side effect exclude accountability of the perpetrator? For example, what happens to Mary afterwards? Is she accountable for anything? Is she responsible for anything? Did she?
Yeah, so that is interesting. Okay, yeah. So we are now assuming, right, that it is permissible for Mary to proceed, right? So you agree that you don't maybe agree with this type of numbers, but at some point you think it is permissible to kill some people in order to save another group of people.
The situation is critical. Mary obviously doesn't have the option. She doesn't have many options.
No?
In this case, she doesn't have many options. She is, I don't know, she's being attacked. The first thing she thinks about is using, whatever weapon she has. So let's just say it's permissible. She's defending herself, 19 other human beings with her. So is she accountable for anything afterwards?
Yeah.
Or is it okay, she's off the hook? She doesn't go to jail?
No, she does not go to jail.
She does not?
No, because what she's doing is morally permissible. That's the idea, right? So
but she is killing other people who might be innocent.
They are innocent, in my story there. They are innocent. So, but we are assuming that these people, so these people are innocent. But the reason for why it is permissible is that first, there is some proportionality here. And second, because these people are moral obstacles. But of course, if these people have, let's say these people have children, right? Does Mary have some particular responsibility towards these children? Because she can't compensate these people.
It's a moral responsibility, I think so.
Yeah,
if you change this to the condition, the situation of states, like England bombing German cities, don't you think England should be responsible morally? Or let's flip this the other way around. A couple of weeks ago, the Polish commemorated the memory of the massacres perpetrated by the Soviet soldiers back in the day. And there was some kind of a compensation in that case.
So this attack comes from outside Britain, right?
Yeah.
Let's assume so, right? And Britain, Mary, can defend, right?
Yes.
But Britain will then kill some innocent bystanders, innocent moral obstacles, right? And then Britain have some duty to compensation.
It should.
Seems very plausible, yes. Yep, you have.
This means that maybe it's not objection, it's a clarification. That Mary is allowed to use as means, shoot the people on the roof to drop on Tom. As long as this number is a subset of the number that she would be allowed to kill as a side effect. Yes. That would be the case. So in the example of the well-known example of the terror bombing versus tactical bombing, you know that story. There is a hill, and there are the bad people on the hill, and you want to occupy the hill. And there's the villagers underneath the hill. And your weapons are not accurate. You can shell the hill, bomb the hill, and occupy it, but you will kill 10 civilians because of the inaccuracy of it. The alternative is to occupy the village and select number of civilians to kill, and threaten the people on the hill that if you don't give up the hill, suppose these are their parents, you will kill more and more. And you can convince those on the hill to actually abandon the hill by killing 5, not 10. And then I think that this kind of killing will be justified. So you can occupy the village, take 5 people and start shooting one by one until they abandon. So you're committed to that.
Yes, provided that this
act doesn't involve another sort of badness which comes from worse than killing. So it could, they could, I mean, it could.
You said the answer again, percent.
Okay, so yeah, so yes, I am committed to say yes to Bashar's question in the sense that if it is permissible to use tactic military means to obtain a particular military goal and then kill 10 civilians, if you then instead can use terror and to kill 5 directly, this is what this is about, then yes, that's permissible, provided that was the terror activity doesn't involve actions that are worse than the death of 5 people. So if the terror is so frightening or whatever, right? Maybe the civilians actually would prefer 10 people dead than 5 people and the terror. Yes.
Yes, I found this thing with the lottery quite convincing, and since you then refer to defensive force only and not to this kind of redistributive justice, which is something else, let me reformulate maybe the objection with reference to defensive force. Suppose somebody says Dr. Evil, for example. Dr. Evil, from James Bond, Dr. Evil, very powerful villain, right? You watch your Bond movies. Anyway, Dr. Evil says credibly that whenever Gerhard Overland defends himself against lethal violence, while the Dalai Lama is in Norway, I will kill 100 people. Okay? Now you are attacked in Norway by an evil aggressor, and the Dalai Lama stands next to you. Therefore, of course, the Dalai Lama's existence and presence now is a moral obstacle for you because it makes it problematic for you to defend yourself against the aggressor. And because you know when you defend yourself against the aggressor, 100 people will die. So the Dalai Lama becomes an obstacle because if you kill the culpable aggressor, Dr. Evil will kill 100 innocent people. So on your account, you are now justified in blowing the head of the Dalai Lama off if you can by that way save yourself.
How many people do you have saved by doing that?
100 in this case.
No, if I don't defend myself, how many people will die?
If you don't defend yourself, you will die.
So the dilemma is one life against Dalai Lama, my life against Dalai Lama, right?
Well, my question first is the Dalai Lama here more an obstacle on your account that he should be? And then,
I don't know.
Would 100 people die if the Dalai Lama is killed?
Well, if the Dalai Lama becomes now more an obstacle, and if he defends himself against the culpable threat, then 100 innocent people will die.
So let's add some people left. Right? I mean, first of all, in your situation, it's not permissible because you ought not to kill one person in order to survive yourself, right? But we could add 10 other people, right? So let's, if we agree that it's 10 to 1 situation, right? Yeah. So you and 9 others are attacked by an aggressor, right? Yeah. You can defend yourself, or I am in the story. So I can defend myself by killing this guy, but then Dr. Evil will kill 100 of the people. So if he did not do that, why? Dalai Lama more obstacle?
Because the presence of the Dalai Lama makes it morally problematic for you to kill the culpable aggressor, and the moral problem lies in the fact that the dictator or Dr. Evil will now kill 100 persons. If the Dalai Lama wasn't there and you would defend yourself against the culpable aggressor, the culpable aggressor would be dead, and that's the end of the story. If the Dalai Lama is there and you defend yourself against the culpable aggressor, 100 people will die.
So maybe I'm committed to that, and maybe that's not so implausible, but it does depend on, it involves another factor, namely the voluntary action of another agent, namely Dr. Evil. So that could make a difference. But, so in order to save these 10 people, But if I kill the Dalai Lama, what does that have, by the way?
Well, the possibility is that you could, by some way, you could use the Dalai Lama to save your life. You throw the Dalai Lama against the innocent, against the culpable aggressor. Is that allowed? You
Yeah, but does that stop Dr. Evil from killing?
Yes, yes.
So Dr. Evil will not do anything if I kill Dalai Lama?
For example, yeah.
I think terrorists do both. They will kill them and people anyway,
Yes, maybe I just have to think more about that. So maybe I'm committed to that. It doesn't seem extremely problematic, but maybe it's a problem.
I think it would be impossible, but okay. One very small point. Maybe I just completely missed this, but you wanted to somehow explain the difference between direct killing and the killing, the side effect killing. But somehow it escaped to me the relevance of this picture. I mean, what you say is that it's impermissible to kill, or that it's very problematic to kill the person left there in the above left corner. But what you want to talk about is the difference between directly killing someone and killing collaterally someone. But then you should keep the two cases apart and say that somehow directly killing the two moral obstacles up there is somehow worse than killing them collaterally. But you didn't say this. You said, in my view, something completely different. Which
no, I said what I said was, I think, was that the starting position from both this paper, right, is that it seems to be an agreement that it is easier to justify killing people as a side effect, right, than killing them directly. And for some reason, my intuition seems to go along with that position, right? But I've never really understood that intentions could explain it. So I tried to come up with another explanation. And I haven't worked on this very long, so I haven't thought about all possible counterexamples. So the idea is that it is the circumstance that these people now find themselves in that have made an otherwise permissible defensive action impermissible. Right?
Permissible, you say permissible. It makes them now permissible to kill.
They are in a situation which have made an otherwise permissible defensive action impermissible.
When you say it is permissible, you show
that was what we discussed. That was what we discussed. So
it makes it problematic.
Yeah.
But that is irrelevant for what you want to explain. You want to explain why somehow the direct killing is worse than the indirect killing. And I don't see that it is worse to kill these two persons directly than to kill them as collateral damage.
No,
why is it worse?
Oh yeah, right. No, I'm not really. So you said it's not worse to kill these two people on the roof.
Directly as opposed, it is not worse to kill them with a rifle as opposed to kill them with a flamethrower by killing this Tom.
Excellent. So that might be something I have to work out the vocabulary, right? But the point is nevertheless that these people can be killed, but not this person.
Yeah, but that is not the difference between killing as a side effect, but it's the difference between killing these persons and the other persons.
Yeah, so that's why I said I need to work on the vocabulary there, perhaps, right? But it nevertheless will explain what I'm trying to explain. I just lack the right vocabulary there, perhaps. Okay. Because it still explains why these two people might be killed and not this person.
Okay, but then you explain something different.
No, because it will map all to the cause effect situation.
Well, thank you very much. You don't notice something more?
Oh, yeah, I have actually 1 more hour to go. We go? But then, so what I've been actually thinking about is that could there be situations in which the people you kill indirectly are not moral obstacles. So that in my head, for the moment, the double effect explanation is coextensive with my moral obstacle cases, right? So could there be either moral obstacle cases that did not map with moral with double effect, or otherwise there are. And I haven't sorted out that. I haven't found any examples, but that's something could be interesting to see. That was my outlook.
Okay, let's finish it.
I just one question.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't understand whether, like, you had an opinion on whether it would be worse to kill the two people on the roof by killing them so that they fall on Tom, or by blowing up the factory so that Tom dies and they die as a side effect. So
exactly.
So which would it be? Like, if Mary had those two options, like she could either, you know, kill the two people so that they fall on Tom, or she could blow up the factory and Tom would die and they would die as a side effect. Is there any difference morally? Like, would you? I have a question about that.
Yeah, and I don't really know yet. In the sense that it started with saying that I don't think intentions has numerical significance, but it might have significance. So that if the numbers are equal, maybe you should go for the killing without intention.
Because that's why, because I'm asking this question because of what Bashad asked about the village, where you said it would be more moral to intend the killing of those 5 people rather than kill 10 without intending. So it depends on the numbers.
Yeah, so I'd say that intention cannot, or I don't think intentions has numerical significance. So that if killing people, intending to kill a subset, so that you will kill at least one person less than you would kill them without intention, you should do that.
So it's about the number.
But if it is the same number, maybe actually intentions should count for enough so that you should go for killing without intention.
So intentions are important, but just in this situation where numbers aren't, you know, like the numbers count more than the intention. So if you can save more lives, you don't. The intentions don't matter so much.
Yeah.
Okay.
So so my argument in this paper is only against that intention can count for more than one life. I do not say that intention doesn't count at all. So I'm agnostic on it for a moment.
All right. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for coming.